Hello, good evening. It is so great to be here. I said this to the last group. I recognize so many of you, and I really feel like how Pastor Brian said, there's people alongside, racers that are running marathons. So many of you were there when I was running my marathon. And when my mom actually asked me to speak about my struggle with anorexia, no way I was going to do this because I'm not a public speaker. But after a lot of prayer, I knew that I needed to share my story and help with my healing, and then hopefully I can help somebody else out there as well who may be struggling with the same thing. In preparing for this, I looked up what the definition of anorexia is, and it has some causes listed, and some of those are if other people in your family have an eating disorder such as anorexia or bulimia, if you have a job that emphasizes body size such as ballet or modeling or gymnastics, if you're the type of person who tries to be perfect all the time, never feels good enough or worries a lot, if you're dealing with stressful life events such as divorce, moving, graduating, or losing a loved one. And I looked at all of these causes, and I sat and I thought about my life. And I grew up in a very loving, but a divorced family. And I have one older sister who, when growing up, was always referred to as the cute little one. And I was Tracy the redhead. And I didn't like that because I was different. And I didn't like being different. And that carried over as me being never being comfortable in my own skin. I can't remember a time that I ever have been. Many of my friends were very comfortable with themselves, and I've always admired them. While I was active in dance and cheerleading, very active in the church youth group, I made some amazing friends, but again, me being not self-confident, I never felt like I fit in, especially with the guys. I was always one of the guys' gals. And once I graduated from high school, I had gained some weight, and I was at my highest weight, and I just didn't feel good about myself. So I decided to start working out, and I actually realized that it was fun. I liked it. And for the first time in my life, I was actually receiving some attention and some compliments. And the compliment that meant the most to me came from a man who means the most to many young women, and that's my dad. And I remember standing in his kitchen, and my dad looked at me, and he says, "Wow, you look great." And he'd always been into fitness and working out, so we actually had something in common. And we started talking about it, and it felt really good to have his approval. I remember thinking, boy, if he thinks I look good now, think about how proud he'll be of me when I lose more weight. So that's what I did. I worked out usually 2 times a day, and I watched what I ate, and I started researching the diet foods. And my mom, ever since I can remember, has always been on a diet, some sort of diet. So it wasn't hard for me to figure out. So what I did is I worked out, and I ate my safe foods, and I felt really powerful. It was during a time in my life where things were very chaotic, and it was the one thing that I felt like I had control over. But it was from there that I don't know how it got so out of control. The only way that I can explain it is I had the devil sitting on one shoulder and always reminding me that if I didn't work out, I was going to get fat. And if I ate that food, I was going to gain weight. All of my time and energy went into bettering my body. But it was when I went beyond the point of being healthy and it became an obsession that I started to starve my body of food and the rest that it needed. And it was that time that the devil started controlling my life instead of me controlling it. Instead of being a young adult and going out and having fun with my friends, and I would be working out twice a day, and I would go to work, and then I would walk through the grocery store for hours on ends, and I would be looking at food labels, and I'd be computing how many calories and fat grams there were and what I could eat and couldn't eat. And I spent hours writing down what I ate and how many calories it was and how many I could eat the rest of the day and how much I needed to work out and to wear it off. And I just wasn't being a kid. I wasn't being a normal 19-year-old. Going out to eat is usually a fun thing for people to do, and it was a huge source of anxiety for me. I'd have to think about how it was prepared, if they used oil or butter or dressing, and I couldn't just sit there and I couldn't enjoy my company. I couldn't enjoy my food. I would have the devil sitting there saying, "You don't need to eat that. You don't need to eat all of that." So I would. If I was still hungry, I would leave it on my plate, just to show that I was the one in control. it was during this time that my mom and my family started growing more and more concerned about my habits of eating and working out. And my mom and I, we'd always been very close, and during this time I didn't want to be close to anybody. I wanted to be in my own safe little world where nobody could bother me, nobody could question me. It was also during this time that I don't remember a lot of things. When you're so consumed in a disease, that's all that you think about. And I missed things like my niece being born, baptized. I was there with my body, but I wasn't there in my mind. We went to Mexico, and I didn't enjoy myself because I worried about when I could exercise, what I was eating, how much I was eating. I couldn't do my routines like writing down what I was eating because my family was there, and they couldn't see things like that. It robbed me of my sleep, and it robbed me of my health. Because of this disease, I also missed being there for people during very important times in their life. When they started to comment that maybe I shouldn't work out so much or that I needed to eat some more, it was really the devil sitting on my shoulder saying, they're just jealous, So what I did is I showed them. I went and worked out more, and I ate less. During this time when the devil was feeding me these lies about how worthless I was, I also had an angel on my other shoulder that was talking to me as well. And in fact, I didn't have one angel. I had many, many angels. I had a lot from our church, my family, my mom, who was actually the loudest angel. She didn't talk. She screamed at me. And she was the one who eventually convinced me to speak to a counselor. She found a counselor for me, and I don't know how she talked me into going, but I went. And this counselor was amazing. She didn't want to harp on me for not eating. She didn't want to talk to me about how much I exercised. She wanted to talk to me about me. And she wanted to talk to me about my relationship with my parents, my sister, why I've never been comfortable in my own skin. And she even did some hypnotism on me to help reduce some anxiety that I'd had about a car accident that I had been in. We talked about everything. And it was the one place that I could go, and I didn't hear that devil that was sitting on my shoulder telling me things. I was safe there. It was a safe place for me to be. I had learned so much about myself in these sessions, and I started seeing that despite the control that I felt I had over this, that I was really, really out of control. In my quest to be the perfect me, I lost myself, and unfortunately, my health declined in so many ways as well. One evening, I was having chest pains, and my mom had rushed me to the hospital. I ended up having gallstones, and they did surgery, and coming out of the surgery, I had so many exciting things. I was moving into my own townhome, and I didn't care about those things. I cared about when I could get back to exercising again. It was those times, too, that I was at my lowest weight, and my hair was falling out in big clumps. I had big bald spots. I was growing baby fine hair all over my body, and that's your body's way when you lose too much weight of insulating you and keeping you warm. The scariest is when my heart would race, and that's something that I never would share with family or doctors. I knew that it wasn't good, and to come to find out that's the majority of what people with eating disorders die from, is their heart can't handle it. Fast forward years later, when I was married and we were starting to try to have a family, I experienced 2 miscarriages, and I had to have fertility medicine in order to get pregnant with one of my children. Fertility issues is something you don't think about when you're 19. And I'm so thankful that God allowed me to have my children, because there are 3 miracles in my life, and some people are not so lucky. Anorexia takes such a toll on the body. It has the highest death rate of any mental illness. Between 5 and 20% of people who develop the disease eventually die from it. And the scary thing is that I could have been one of those. And in my head, I really didn't think that I had a problem. I didn't think that I was skinny like all the girls in the magazines, and I didn't really think that I was sick. But it's the things that are happening internally that really are the scariest. Some of the worst things with anorexia and bulimia is your bones, the osteoporosis that can set in, and the heart. You lose heart muscle at a fast rate, so your heart gets smaller and weaker, and it gets worse at increasing your circulation in response to exercise. So your pulse and your blood pressure get lower, and you have the cardiac tolls on your heart are acute and they're significant, and they set in quickly. So heart damage is actually what killed singer Karen Carpenter, and it's the most common reason for death among people with eating disorders. Anorexia takes a long time to overcome, and it's very easy to fall back into. I don't recall a turning point where I said that, okay, I'm going to start eating now, or I'm going to stop working out so much. I think it was the help of the counselor, my family, my friends, and my wonderful husband who I met during my recovery. I was able to finally take steps towards loving me, who God made me. And I was able to finally silence the devil that had been sitting on my shoulder for so long. If it wasn't for my wonderful family pushing me to get help and telling me how unhealthy I was and praying for me and asking others to pray for me, and ultimately my mom just breaking down and crying in front of me and telling me she didn't want to lose me, I really don't believe I'd be here today. I don't want anybody else to have to deal with this. Low self-esteem, anxiety, and depression are all things that trigger anorexia. And those are all things that are still present in my life, things that I have to deal with. I'll always live with these issues. But with God and my family, I know that I am in control now. And if I feel out of control, I give the control back to God. Faith has played a huge role in my life, both then and now. I still hear the devil whispering in my ear every now and again. But I look at my family, especially my kids, and I know that God gave me this wonderful second chance at life. Learning to love and accept ourselves as children of God is sometimes tough. But it's the one thing I vow I will teach my children. In closing, I just want to say that if you do know somebody who's struggling with this, don't try to bear the brunt of it yourself. You need to get them help. The sooner you can get them help, the better chance that there is that you can help silence their demons too. Thank you.